most producers get stuck using the same sampling techniques over and over, so all their beats sound the same as everyone else's. But if you want to make beats that consistently sound good and stand out, you need better sampling methods. So today I'm going to show you a cool sampling technique that you can add into your arsenal. It's easy to learn and it can help you use samples in a creative way, just like the greats. It's called the time shift method. Timbaland, a pioneer of sampling, used this method in many of his past beats, and today I'm going to show you how it works. So to do this, all you need to do are three things. The first one is easy, the second one is simple as well, but the third, it's the key to this technique that will help you separate your beats from the beginners. So what are they? Well, let me show you by sharing a few of Timbaland's beats that all use the time shift method, and let's see if you can pick up on what these three ideas might be. Beat number one is from We Need a Resolution by Aaliyah.
Who should be heard? Will we remain?
Beat number two is Hot Boys by Missy Elliott.
Say what? Baby, you got what I want.
And beat number three is Heartbroken, also by Aaliyah.
Baby, 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 yeah. I wanna satisfy you.
Alright, so let's break these beats down to see how the time shift method works, and I'll even make a beat using this method at the exact same time to show you exactly how to do this. Now, the first thing these beats all have in common is simple. They all use thin samples with a lot of movement. Now, what does this mean? Well, take a look at the sample that Timbaland uses for these beats. We Need a Resolution uses this. You can hear the sample is only made up of a few instruments and sounds, but they have a high amount of movement. There's just a lot of notes playing. For the next beat, Hot Boys, it's an even more simplified version of this. I don't know what the sample is, but when we actually listen to it, again, it's an even thinner sample with less layers, but there's also some degree of movement since we have different notes playing. And finally, with Aaliyah's Heartbroken, it's just keys with a thin layer of faint singing over top. We don't have drums, we don't have a bass line, crashes going all over the place. The sample is thin. So first, let me quickly grab a sample to make a beat using this technique. And to understand why using a thin sample is so important, let's jump back into Timbaland's beats and actually analyze what's really going on here. With Hot Boys, for example, we saw Timbaland using a really simple sample that's just made up of two notes. But as you can imagine, using this same sample over and over and over again would just get boring. But take a look at what he does after 2 bars. He uses the exact same sample but pitches it up 7 semitones. And this introduces a lot more musicality into the beat so it doesn't feel repetitive. Same thing with We Need a Resolution. We see him using this sample at multiple pitches. And again, with Heartbroken, he starts by playing this chop 4 semitones lower and then 9 right after. And this is exactly why using a thin sample is so key to this technique. If your sample has thick, dense instrumentation or tons of musical layers and sounds and drums, you might run into a problem. While some ideas might work in it, like the guitar in this example I did like, the problem is going to be everything around it. It's just going to get harder and harder to get everything to make sense, which is why I recommend you use a thinner sample to do this. I'm not saying it's absolutely impossible to do this with a thicker sample, but it will be much, much harder. But there is another problem to look out for here. Since we are using a sample at multiple pitches, you will need to make sure you follow what the sample is actually doing when you create patterns around it. And if building patterns around your samples is something that you struggle with, I do have a plugin that can help you called Note Grabber, which you can actually try for free. For example, if we take a look at the notes playing within the sample chops, which Note Grabber can show us, And then we quickly jump over here to see what the repitch chops are doing. This makes creating a bass line much easier. We can just follow what the lower notes in the sample are doing, for example, by starting with an F and then going up to a C. And this is, in fact, exactly what Timbaland does with his bass line for his beat, which works perfectly with the sample. He goes from an F up to a C, just like No Grabber showed us. So that is idea number 2. You need sample repitchability. So let's test our sample to see if we can find some section within it that is repitchable. If we tried using this part of the sample here, for example, that doesn't sound all that great when testing it at multiple pitches. There's just a bit too much going on. But when we test this different part of the sample here, which you can even see visually is much thinner, this just has a much better chance of actually working. But having said that, there's one final piece to the puzzle that we do need to think about. We've already covered why using a thin sample is so important. It helps us when we repitch the actual sample itself. But why does the sample need movement? How does that help the beat when we use the sampling method? Well, take a look at what's happening within Hot Boys, for example. This is the printed out audio version of what the sample is doing in the beat. And when we take a look at the notes and break down the timing of them, this is where a lot of the magic happens. So this piece up top is the pitched up version of the sample, and you can hear and see it has a pretty standard timing compared to the grid line. But when we take a look at the sample when it gets repitched, it is far different. You can hear, since the sample is stretched out at this lower pitch, the rhythm is different now. The second note within this sample phrase has a different time signature almost. That's how different the rhythm is. And this is what helps make your beats sound unusual and different when you're using this technique. When you play your sample at different pitches, not only do you get a new musical idea, we also get new rhythmic ideas as well. The timing of the notes in the sample can start to shift when you play your phrase at a different pitch, but only if you purposely enable this. So make sure to look out for this. With many modern sampling tools, they will automatically play any note with the same speed and therefore rhythm by default. So make sure to look out for this option and turn it off if you want to do this technique. Or alternatively, you can just sample with a much more simple approach of mapping a sample across a keyboard, which will stretch the sample based on the key you play. So with this last idea in mind, let's finalize our beat using this time shift method. By using this chop at different pitches, we get different rhythms based on what pitch the sample is playing at. And now I can build around this sample to make a full beat that has much more interesting musical ideas, but also unique rhythms. So that is the final key to this technique. Make sure to time shift with your chops, helping introduce unique rhythms into your beat. And like I mentioned, if you struggle to build around your samples, no matter what beat making technique you're using, think about checking out Note Grabber by clicking the thing next to me here. Thousands of producers are already using this tool, but this isn't the only helpful Timbaland beat idea that can help you elevate your production. Next to me is also another video where I break down many more of Timbaland's beat making ideas. Click it and your beats will grow in power. So go ahead, click something. Click one of them, come on.